Member Sibley's is outside. Welcome, Member Miller. Members, we have the minutes of the last meeting on June 29th. Everybody should have it in front of you and it would have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Chairman, page 3.
Page 3, yeah.
I think it is the second paragraph. I think I said is missing there. Member
Sibley said that having reviewed. Okay, so we could insert the word said. Any other corrections to the minutes, members? If not, could I have a motion for the confirmation, Member Holness, seconded by Member Miller? So Taylor, could you invite in the, you have something, hold on one second. Yes, Member Sibley.
Chair, there's a matter that I think we need to discuss that was circulated. I got it about Friday. The papers came to us Friday.
Right.
And also on Monday. Right? And I noticed there's a particular document in it that I wished to discuss with you, Chair, and the members in camera.
Which, well...
It's a contract. There's a contract that was redacted, and I wish to discuss same. Yes.
Okay. You want us to, all right, let's take, because the representatives are here from Finance, let's take them first, and then could we do that before FLA comes? Because the representatives are here. So let's do that, and then before FLA comes, we take that. All right?
Chairman,
yeah.
I am not finding as well that we have sufficient time to go through the documents that we are getting. We are getting the documents so late, it's a rush to properly go through and organize. I figure we have to figure out a way.
It is an issue, member, like you. I raise it with the clerk. The clerk is really does the conduit, so as soon as she gets it, she sends it to us. So but I agree with you, Member Holness. That is an issue.
And Chairman, can I?
Oh, Member Charles?
This morning and I'm running late.
Sorry, you can repeat, Member Charles? I'm not hearing you clearly.
Not realizing the time.
Sorry, Member Charles, could you repeat?
Member Charles, your
Member
mic
Charles,
is
not hearing you
working.
clearly. Could you repeat what you said?
Her mic isn't working at all. It is sounding very muffled in and out, either poor internet service.
Member Charles, if you could repeat or sort out your technology. All right, we'll come back to that, Member Charles. I think you need to sort out you're breaking up, so we can barely hear what you're saying.
And Member Charles, what you may do is just send a note via WhatsApp. That may help in the interim if you have an urgent statement to make while online.
Morning, Madam Financial Secretary and our Accountant General.
Morning.
Could I ask you, Madam FS, if you could introduce yourself and the team from the Accountant General's Department that is here?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee.
Hold on, I don't think we're hearing you. Is the mic, if you can come a little closer or bring the mic up.
Okay, good morning. So we have members from the Ministry of Finance and Public Service, as well as the Accountant General's Department and the Planning Institute here with us today. I will just ask the Accountant General, Mrs. Anya Jones, to introduce the AGD team.
Sorry, before I see some officials standing, if there are not enough seats, you could sit on this side, on the right-hand side, if there are not enough seats over there.
Okay, good morning, Chair. Members.
No, you don't have to sit. No, you can come up. Come up in the front row here. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mrs. Jones.
Morning, Chair. Morning, members, other attendees. The Accountant General's team consists of myself, as was introduced, Anya Jones. Directly behind me is Mr. Raja Harrison, Deputy Accountant General, Financial Operations, that has direct oversight for the pensions operations. We also have other team members from the pensions team, Mrs. Patricia Greaves. We have Deputy Accountant General, Financial Resources, Austin Douglas Panther. We have Ms. Nicole Clark, Deputy Accountant General, Government Accounting Reporting. We also have our Finance Director, Mrs. Angela Williams, along with Senior Director Corporate Services Acting, Ms. Antonio.
Madam Auditor General, could you introduce your team?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I am accompanied by Hyacinth Williams, Audit Principal, directly to my left. And beside her is Deputy Auditor General Carolyn Lewis. Behind her is Deputy Auditor General Marlon Macadam. And beside Mr. Macadam is Nicario Stewart. And behind me is Deledife Dixon, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mrs. Blake.
Morning. Hope Blake, Deputy Financial Secretary, and with me on the other side in the pink tie is Barrington Thomas, Head of the Financial Systems Unit.
We are counted for all the officials here. I think there are others who haven't been introduced, Madam FS.
Okay, so we have from the Ministry of Finance the Principal Finance Officer, Mr. Michael Parker, who is behind me. We have Stephen Kelly, also from the Finance and Accounts Division. We have Ms. Diane Black, Deputy Financial Secretary, Debt Management, and we have a few persons from the Debt Management supporting her.
Madam FS, could you speak a little more closely to the mic, because we can't hear.
Okay, we have a few persons also from the Debt Management supporting Ms. Black, and we have from the PIOJ, the project managers for Foundations for Competitiveness and for the Climate Project. And they are Mr. Melvin Smith and Mr. Lehome Johnson.
That covers all the officials who are here, Madam FS?
Believe so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Madam AG, could you just take us through briefly the summary of the audit?
Chair, before the Auditor General go through, I want to put on record that we got this document only yesterday I have not had time to go through the document, so I am not properly prepared. And Chair, in going forward, is it possible that we can get these documents a week before?
Member, I note your concern, and it's a concern I have as well. I spoke to the committee clerk. The challenge is as soon as the committee clerk receives the documents, they are sent to us, but I accept the point that they have come late and it's difficult to prepare in a very short period of time when the documents come late. So it's an issue I've raised with the committee clerk, and going forward we'll have to address it. But it certainly hinders our ability to ask the kind of questions that we would want. But nonetheless, in spite of that, with the officials here, we're going to proceed, but we'll take that going forward, that we at least have proper time to peruse and prepare before we come to the PAC. Madam AG.
And
Thanks,
Chair,
Mr. Chairman. If I could just address that point, please, because we have had this discussion at the Public Accounts Committee before. The Public Accounts Committee ought to be guided by the reports. This report that I send is not a requirement. I send it really just to provide an update on the matters which I consider to be resolved. So it is not the primary document that really must be focused on. It is the full report. What this, however, provides, and why it becomes challenging, Mr. Chairman, is the timing of the submission. I have actually tried to address that by sending it the Friday before. The elements that we take into consideration, and Mrs. Douglas Beckford should be aware that at times, sometimes it's even the day before the Public Accounts Committee that we obtain the result, the feedback, and we try to verify before. So that really presents a challenge. I cannot, at this point in time, promise what I spoke to Mrs. Douglas Beckford about the prompts that was sent on Thursday. I actually sent it off because I did not have an opportunity based on my schedule last week, and normally I like to review the prompts before they come to the Public Accounts Committee. So those were sent on Friday. I had a meeting yesterday to review the prompts, and I saw that a significant amount of the issues could be tagged as resolved. And I asked that we update the prompts so there's no change in the information that what was provided to Mrs. Douglas Beckford last week. And in fact, what is contained in the prompt is coming verbatim from the report. So what I am imploring the members to do is to have a look at the report. And I will ask Mrs. Douglas Beckford to provide the members with the report so they are able to review the report. And what I do is to provide a feedback here on whether I believe the matters have been resolved or not.
Yes, Member Siblings.
Chair, if you can recall, our last meeting, you had said that we are going to go to the Auditor General's report, and that the Auditor General should give some indication as to the areas that we need to look at. Now, Chair, I can fully appreciate the Auditor General and the schedule of her diary. And so too is the schedule of our diaries as Member of Parliament and business people and working people. And therefore, we are not asking, what we are asking, Chair, is that when it gets to us, we make a decision whether or not, based on the time that the reports would come to us, or we are notified of department, ministry, or agency to be audited, that we take a decision as to whether it is sufficient time for members to have reviewed the report, and then to say whether or not we should have a meeting the following day or reschedule the meeting for the following week. So, Chair, I am really not asking the Auditor General's department to send the report. I am saying whenever she sent the report, we are asking for at least a week to review same going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I understand what the member is saying, but that is not my responsibility, and I think that is what needs to be made clear.
No, man, I know. No,
yes,
that's
not
second.
my responsibility.
One second,
and I also want to say that my responsibility is to submit the report.
No. He wasn't saying that was your
Okay.
responsibility. He's saying the committee, one second, member Holden, that the committee, once we have received the documents, we should make the determination
Yes.
about whether we meet. So he wasn't saying that was
Okay,
your
I didn't
responsibility
understand what
at all.
he was saying, Chairman.
Yeah, so, and I take, member Sibley's, I take the point clearly that you have made in terms of the adequacy of time to prepare for the meetings, and going forward, we will take that into account based on the time that we receive the documents. Member Holness.
Chairman, I still would like to add to it. AG, I think Member Sibley's point was misunderstood. We actually commenced the discussion prior to your entering. So it actually had nothing to do with when we got your prompts alone. What is happening when you send off an email, you may have sent it off from last Thursday. Sometimes it is actually not received and opened by the clerk until probably Monday. And then as soon as she gets it, then she tries to pass it on to the committee. And if we are not careful, we would get something yesterday and not even realize it came in. And we're here this morning with the printed paper. So it has been happening over time for various reasons. When we had the last discussion, it was agreed that you would actually look through, because it was such a bulky document, to identify where we needed to place the focus. And we would have then been waiting on the documentation to see exactly where. It is almost impossible if you have had the benefit, both yourself and the various agency, ministry or department head would have had the benefit of having had a long, extensive audit, which means that you are privy to the information, you have had the opportunity to digest the information, and then when we get a bulky report, sometimes even a week is not enough for us to go through and identify the critical steps. So we are quite appreciative of the pointers, but even that sometimes gets to us so late that it is very difficult for us to make any meaningful or valuable contribution. So that was the sense of the discussion before you stepped in, to say we have to figure out a way how to better organize so that when information is required, we get it with sufficient time to prepare.
Thanks for that clarification, member. And just to say that I think previously we would submit the prompts the Monday. That's the Monday before the PAC, and we tried to note in your point, which has been raised by previous members as well, having an opportunity to actually review the document. So we pushed it back to Thursday. But in this particular situation, I had a discussion with Mrs. Douglas Beckford, and she said, though the email was sent, she did not receive it. So it's not a matter of not opening it. She said there is some, I can't explain. That must be technology driven.
You sent it Thursday. It didn't come until Friday.
Monday.
She sent it Friday, and she didn't receive it until Monday.
Right.
So something is going on with the technology.
Right.
And she tried to send it out as soon as.
So, but I think this is also the opportune time for me to mention, because we have had this discussion. The Public Accounts Committee we have discussed under previous chairmanship needs to have the support of a research officer, because the prompt that the Auditor General's Department is sending really should be done by someone that is supporting the Public Accounts Committee, reviewing the reports and advising the members of the specific issues. I believe the PAAC may have gotten such support. And so the over the years, the Public Accounts Committee is heavily dependent on the Auditor General's department, and we tend to go up to the midnight hour when we are verifying, when information comes in, if we can verify. Because if the issue is resolved, I see exactly. And in fact, in the past, the prompt would only be comprised of what we consider to be outstanding issues. But a decision was made some time ago to include all the issues to give the members an opportunity to raise it if they would like to do so, irrespective of my views on the matter. So certainly, I believe that it has been long on the cards, Mr. Chairman.
Well, just to say, it is an issue which I raised with the leader of government business in meetings that the chairs of the parliamentary committees have. I've asked about it, and I will ask again, because I do believe it is important for us to, while you are providing the prompt, to have some level of independence too, in relation to what you provide. We are heavily dependent on your guidance, but I think the committee needs that level of independence. It is the leader of government business acknowledged it, and hopefully maybe after the break, it is something that we can see implemented. As you said, the PAAC has support personnel in that regard, and I believe we need to as well. So it's something I acknowledged from early in my chairmanship and flagged it as an issue. Members, again, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to ask the AG to take us through the report.
Right. So just a summary, Mr. Chairman, the prompt that you have before us is the result of our review of the pension administration process. Chief among our finding was the deficiency with the Accountant General's Department standard operating procedures and risk management framework, which contributed to the other weaknesses identified in the report. Notwithstanding, Mr. Chairman, the Accountant General has since taken significant steps to address many of the issues raised in the report, and you will see that indicated with a blue dot going through the prompt, the issues that I consider to have been resolved. Others are in the process of being resolved, and for those I have an indication there of keep in view. The Accountant General can provide a status report on that. And another matter is the outstanding, the matter with the arrears of the appropriation accounts for the pensions payments, which would have, as I would have indicated in the report, presented a limitation of scope, because the last one that was available for our review was 1314, and action has been taken there as well, but I will now hand over, Mr. Chairman, to the Accountant General. Thank you.
Mrs. Jones, you're going to lead, or the FS?
Okay, thank you. All right, let me take the first point regarding the risk management issues that were faced. We have organized the whole management process, where we now have a steering committee in-house. We have active working groups. All right, the AGD is a functional unit. So to ensure we have comprehensive coverage, the working group is comprised of relevant members from each division. Thereafter, on a yearly basis, the risks are identified, condensed into the risk register. This is monitored by the steering committee, resolution, if we're lagging, what recommendations are needed to treat with it. So the pension issues raised in the report, for example, the high level of manual processing, that is a risk or has been a risk. The decision was taken internally. We needed to procure a pension payment system. We have started that process. We recently received the external approvals. We are now at the contract stage, and we are also sourcing the project team to ensure that that project is successful. A lot of the findings of the Auditor General has to do with the system, the manual nature, and if we are able to address, not if, we will address that, successfully, we would have addressed a number of issues.
Can you just say, what is the system being used now? I know you're procuring a new one, but what are you doing right now?
Okay, we're using TurboPay.
Pay? Okay.
Yes.
Member Holness?
I'm not getting in my very quick glance at the AG's prompt that the issue is only the payroll system, but one of targeting and monitoring, particularly pensioners that you know are more likely not to be around anymore.
Okay.
So if the process of paying attention to persons 90 and older was more robust and vigilant, you would quickly be able to spot where your largest risk of paying dependents who do not exist is occurring. And that now matched with their payroll system would still have been able to mitigate some of the potential loss of funds or having to go back to recover from individuals' misclaimed pensions.
Okay.
Can I, before you answer, is there any alignment with the Registrar General's Department in terms of debts to record them before you have to await the relative indicating?
All right, which question first? All right, I'll answer both questions in one. All right, there is the life certificate that pensioners are required to submit on a quarterly basis. How the process works is that a life certificate is received, it's encoded with barcoding, scanned up into the system, and that seamlessly discontinues. We have heard of the suspension on a quarterly basis. So that in tandem with the payroll system, that is how it works. For the over 90, we take the point, high risk. Subsequent to the audit, we had a phased increase. At this point, we have just over 1,200 over 90 persons on the payroll, active over 90 persons on the payroll. We continue to receive the life certificates, but notwithstanding the visitation, we have committed for an...
Just clear up the life certificate, that's critical.
Yes.
Who presents you this physical life certificate every quarter? If it's not the pensioner, then you're only getting a document that anybody could take to you, which means that individual may not necessarily be alive.
The life certificate is signed by a pensioner. It's validated by a justice of a peace or other critical persons, medical doctors, and other esteemed persons. Where we are going, and I'll go into the response that the chairman raised, where are we going? How are we partnering with the RGD? So there are some risks. We have reached out to the Registrar General, and we have been advised of the civil registration number. The civil registration number will link all life's vital events, birth through marriage to death. When we are able to do that, we have started a discussion in terms of the web service. How will the RGD system speak to our system to ensure that we are properly notified on a timely basis of the living status of these pensioners? So there is the now approach, increase the visitation. COVID has not allowed for that during this era, but as soon as we can, we will continue. Team members have attempted visitation and they were not allowed into the household of some of these pensioners. So that is the now. Going forward is that of the interface with the RGD system.
Respectfully, even in rural communities, a substantial amount of Jamaicans have smartphones. So immediately it would be good to ask everybody to find even one family member. The person who is carrying this life certificate should have access to a phone. So they use the phone and just put up grandma picture and see grandma there talking or showing your grandma is still there. And that's how they came to collect the money. In the same way, every quarter they can find a way to come with the certificate to show you that this person is alive. A basic thing, somebody in the community must have a cell phone that can take a little video or something that gives you a timestamp or a virtual call, even during COVID, to show that this person still exists, that is collecting the pension with whomever is in charge of doing their visitations.
The challenge, Member Holness, I don't know if you have a database with the pictures and that you can match it accurately. No, I don't know. You can answer Mrs. Jones, but what you don't want is people to go rent mommy or grandma. No, I'm being serious. Yeah, people may just decide that Tom Jones down the road is grandma and take a picture. So I don't know if you have a database to match it. Seriously.
Chairman, it's basic. I would really want to hope we're not paying pension to individuals that we have not in any way verified. So if they're supposed to be receiving visitations, and if because of COVID they are not visited as frequently, it means that at no point did we think about how creative our people can be in beating systems, and we did not necessarily put anything in place. So if you have a life certificate, we should know that the individual, this is their picture, this is what they look like, this is their signature. So even if the JP who is signing doesn't quite know for sure the person, which shouldn't really happen, we literally should not have so many breakdowns along the way in identifying the individual and keeping in touch. In 33 months, it means that if you're paying $4.1 million over for just 23 dependents, it is a substantial problem. 23 is a small number of dependents that have been overpaid $4.1 million. And it means that we have to wonder, how much more are we overpaying for persons less than 90? How much more? So to me, it is very critical that we get the additional resources and really attack this problem of finding our pensioners, doing the visit, documenting the visit with a video and pictures, and put together proper filing. If they can sign, get the signature, so that you can do an internal cross-audit of the persons that you are serving. Because when you are spending a lot of your time and effort servicing people who do not exist, it means it's to the disadvantage of those senior citizens, those pensioners who genuinely are alive, well, and do not have the service because you are stretched dealing with the greedy and the dishonest.
Mrs. Jones?
All right, member, through the chair, we would need some level of legislation to support what you are indicating. The current legislation would not support, for instance, the video, etc. And we are in the process of moving towards a much improved system, with the expectation that the civil registry will come on shortly down the road, and we will be able to verify on a timely basis the life status of the pensioners.
All right, member, I come in, member guy, but member Miller had a follow-up, and then member.
Through you, Chair, may I do a quick response?
Yes,
there,
go ahead,
please?
Mrs. Jones, go ahead.
So we have tried creativity, member. COVID has come with its challenges, but it has also come with its benefits and opportunities. What we have been doing is we have been scouting YouTube. Since COVID, most funerals, if not all, are live streamed on the YouTube. And we have one team member, I think, assigned to go through the YouTube videos, funeral services, and we try to do the match-up, date of birth and name. So we have attempted creativity just to make sure, and we actually came up on a matter where there were claims, and the YouTube video date of birth was able to help us. Now we have to be careful there because we can't go say you have died. We can say, could you provide us with additional proof? So with the rules, there are some creative elements that we can approach, but there are also limitations to that.
All right, Member Miller, then Member Guy, then Member Sibley's.
Thank you, sir, Chair. I'd like
Charles.
to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Just to ask, though, because I've experienced it personally, where persons come in my presence to authorize a pensioner's signature. The pensioner is not there according to them, but the pensioner died when I did my own investigation, right? And I desist from signing it. I know persons are in the system that are doing that. And you mentioned a short while ago that sometime you would visit these homes and you're barred from entering. In a situation like that, what do you do in such a situation?
All right. This has only been during the COVID era. What we have done, though, in a particular parish, we could reach out to the custos to lend us some support if needs be, but we can't force entry into anyone's home at all. So we would have had the life certificate, and we try our best to validate those life certificates. The present system relies a lot on integrity. So as a JP, as a medical doctor, as an officer of the constabulary force, we are bounded by certain professional ethics, and we rely on that also. But yes, there are weaknesses, and we are addressing in a phased basis. As Financial Secretary indicated, the civil registration number, where we have that seamless interface between the departments, that is where the high level of assurance is going to be received. What we attempt to do is be flexible within the rules. We have gotten calls, we have gone out in COVID, some persons are receptive, some persons are not. When they're not receptive, who can we reach out in the parish to lend us some assistance? And that has been the mode of operandi for us.
Thank you. Member, you have a follow-up?
Yes, sir, Chair. I'm recommending, sir, Chair, that we re-all the system, because if we are going to depend on integrity, that can be an issue. Because you have many persons out there, sadly, that are practicing as JP and they're not JPs, right? So, re-all of the system is in good order, sir, Chair.
Thank you. Member Guy?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've signed many of those life certificates, wearing many hats. Signed in the sense that I've witnessed the signature. But there's another matter that arises from this, Madam Accountant General, and it relates to the fact that very recently we have heard in the news, and a matter that has been brought to your attention as well, the whole matter of people sending in life certificates by a particular time, the time meaning within the period that the Accountant General Departments wants it, but yet they have not been on the system to get their monthly pension. And that issue could be resolved or solved by some of the measures that my colleagues have been mentioning, but it is a sore point. I just want to know what measures have you taken, what measures the department has taken in resolving this, because when you think of a pensioner, and you would be aware because you get many calls, who depend on that every month to meet their bills, to meet their basic subsistence, and sometimes it does not take the next month to get it, but 2 or 3 months down the road.
Yes.
What provisions are made to ensure, one, that when these life certificates gets to the department, that they are channeled in the right direction? 2, what other measures are being taken to ensure that if it's a registered mail that comes in, who receives it in terms of tracking it? And thirdly, just for my edification, am I to assume correctly that it is only persons over the age of 90 that you do visits to ascertain? Everyone?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All right, thank you, member. All right. We have received the complaints. Life certificates have been mailed to us. We have not received. We are rolling out at this point, well, we're in the process of procuring electronic drop boxes so that the reliance is not so much placed on the postal service, because the majority of our complaints, I mailed it, have we received it? We have not. We are phasing that project where we'll commence with 2 parishes based on the greatest volume of pensioners, and we anticipate that the drop boxes will be placed commencing in September 2021. And we are starting with St. James, and we are starting with St. Andrew. Yes, St. Andrew, we're right here. But because of the volume, we have gotten quite a few complaints there. So we're partnering with another entity, government entity, where we are now in the discussion stage to place these drop boxes. So it's it's an improvement for the guarantee that the life certs will actually reach to the AGD. And we want to do a phased rollout of that to address the concerns that you've raised, Member.
Can I have Member Sibley's, Charles, and Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Jones, have you been in contact with the Secretariat for the needs in terms of how the needs will help? And because in light of, I heard you are in the middle of procuring systems and so on. Have you gotten any information, the specification, how it will work, and will the needs assist in this respect? Because I know there are a number of pensioners who are not living in Jamaica, and they are entitled to their pension. And I'm not sure we are going to ask you to visit them where they are. But I'm asking with regards to the needs. Have there been any discussion? Yes. And is it an answer to most of this issue?
Yeah. Yes, Member, it will assist us greatly. The Registrar General's Department, based on my understanding, will form a significant step in the needs process. And the new pension system that we are procuring, well, we're not contract stage, the system has the capability to include the unique reference numbers. And our IT personnel, they have spoken, and for that interface, that web service application, it's the unique identifier that will allow both applications to talk. So in our system design, we not only selected one unique reference number, the system has the capability of more than one. Because we do have the TRN, we still want to keep that there in our database, subject to how the process evolves. We have the NIS number, and there are other numbers. We're talking about the civil registration number. So what we want to do is place ourselves in a position that if there are policy changes, the system will not require great modification. So your concern has been considered. Regarding the overseas pensioners, yes, we have gotten significant complaints there. What we did, all right, so In the overseas jurisdiction, many of these countries have a registry of deaths. How could we tap into that? We are prudent persons, so we reached out to the lawyers and we asked, are we able to mandate a GOJ pensioner living overseas to provide us with this unique identifier from their country? Because that is what we would need to engage the search to see if Tom A is indeed alive. We have since gotten an opinion. We are now to put plans in place, and it's very embryonic as to how we are going to move forward with this, because it is going to require buy-in from these pensioners living overseas. But that will be the simplest way, in our view, to ensure that we are aware of John A. being alive or not. And just to clarify, we're not saying we're abandoning the life certificate system. We're thinking complementary and maybe a reduced frequency in submission. So not necessarily on a quarterly basis, but possibly once a year. We're still talking through the steps in the process, but we're looking towards that to satisfy the pensioners overseas there.
Ms. Jones, just as a side note, as a member of parliament, I'm going to make the effort in my own constituency to help you to identify the persons who are still there as pensioners. Most time, as MPs, we know when persons pass away. We know the people who are there because we are required to be doing our own political organization on the ground. So to whatever extent I can, and I'm sure other MPs will jump in as well, we will try to assist in helping you to identify persons who are either struggling to get their pensions and can't get on the system, or who have passed away and are no longer in need of claiming the benefits.
Thank you, Member. I appreciate it.
Member Charles.
Morning, everyone. Mrs. Jones, do you all have access to the death certificates? Because you almost can't do anything when you pass away. The family can't do anything without an original death certificate. But if instead of having young people go and review what's going on YouTube, is there some way when you're reviewing the future of this system that you can coordinate with the entity that holds the death certificates, and you can definitely know the births and their death? So maybe you can figure that out with the Registrar General, and you'll be able to wipe away most of those visitations that you're locked out of their house, you know? Consider that, please.
Thank you. We continue to partner with the Registrar General's Department. Thank you.
Member Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Jones, it would seem, and I agree with you, that integrity, the system is largely dependent on the integrity of our participants, stakeholders, the justices of the peace, the attorneys, the persons who are involved in the verification process. I'd just like to ask you a quick question before I move on. What, in your estimation, what's the incidences of fraud like from an overseas perspective in relation to overseas based pensioners compared to the local incidences, if you can?
All right. Albeit the system is based on integrity in terms of the validation of living status, when we receive the life certificate properly completed with the affixation of your stamp, whether it's a JP or if it's another public official, the police, the notary publics overseas, we accept that and we do validation if needs be. If a document comes to us and it's looking, you know, the number, the reference number of the stamp is looking as if it has been tampered with, then we reach out. But to answer that question, member, in terms of a comparison of possible fraudulent submissions,
if you have unearthed, you know, that have come to your attention, comparatively speaking.
No, what I can say, I'm not able to give you that. What I can say, if we see a matter that is suspicious, we do not pay. And if there are local issues, we refer immediately to the RPD.
Yeah.
We have referred matters there. There was a conviction 2 years ago, similar situation. So the team is aware that whatever we deem as uncomfortable, suspicious, we refer to the experts, because we are not the experts here.
Yeah.
The RPD will look into the matter and make a determination if we continue. In those instances, the visitation is a must, because that will form a part of the evidence in validating living status or not.
Yeah.
Can I ask 1 second, Donovan? What percentage of our pensioners are overseas? And I mean, while you can validate with RGD locally, how would you validate a death for someone abroad?
All right. The Chair, the registry of death that we spoke about I spoke about for the pensioners living overseas, that is what we would need to push forward. Just as how we're moving forward with the civil registration number locally, that's the mirror system for the overseas pensioners. For the overseas pensioners currently active on our database, we have approximately 1,000 on the database at this point in time.
That's out of 33,000.
Yes,
right?
just over 33,000.
The overseas pensioners, what is the proportion in terms of money paid out to those persons? If their pensions are higher on average, that may distort, even though their numbers do not appear to be substantial, the amount that is being paid out in a way that you are not able to verify through visits that they actually still exist.
Right. Please allow us to do a quick calculation there, member, and whilst we do that, we'll take the other question.
So, may I continue, Mr. Chair?
No.
Well, from a local perspective, I have had the experience. Well, I've seen the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, as well as I think the Ministry of Local Government in recent times. They have introduced programs, for example, where they utilize HOPE participants, summer students, unemployed young people in the constituencies. They have asked us as members of parliament to provide them a list of names to do surveys, research, to carry out functions in the field. Now, it's just a proposal here. Would it help, for what it is worth, would it help if the ministry could adopt such a program, for example, in their verification process? So I know we are in the context of COVID, but God willing and optimistically, hopefully, we'll get over that. But wouldn't it help if, for example, during the summer, you could have each member of parliament submit, names of young persons who you could employ just for a summer program, set aside a budget that they could assist with the verification process, go out in the field, do their investigations, visit some of these homes, and albeit that they might not be able to accurately capture everything accurately, but they might be able to provide meaningful data and information which the ministry could utilize in stamping out these incidences of fraud. And I think that the savings that compared to the cost of these summer workers, in my view, we could end up making significant savings, comparatively speaking. The cost benefit should be good. Is that something that you think the ministry could consider?
I like how you ended that proposal, member, cost benefit. So without giving a commitment or otherwise, let us do some thought processing of the proposal and with a determination. Bearing in mind there are certain rules that we follow. Yeah. So for validation, we tend to use accountable officers.
Okay.
You know? So there are certain strictures.
Because of the confidentiality of people's information,
and
I understand.
Right, the risk of identity theft and a lot of things. So we would really have to sit and do a cost-benefit proposal and to see where that carries us.
A question like, is Mrs. Miss Joan Brown still living here, and, can I have a sight of her?
something
could be as
like
basic as that.
Yes. So we would have to do the due diligence there, but we are committed to being flexible within the rules, because we know our customers, they have served our country.
Yes.
And they should receive an esteemed service.
So
we continue to look at the dynamics and make changes as best as we possibly can within the rules.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Jones, and more so Ms. Morrison from Ministry of Finance. We look forward each summer to being given an allocation from sometimes various different ministries to hire a small portion of young persons. Coming from what Member Williams said, it would be good for the government to figure out a way to just coordinate the efforts so you don't incur any additional costs. But members of parliament are instructed, as a part of helping to get the audit of our pensioners done, to possibly take this summer, and this is the summer that in a coordinated way, some of the individuals are assigned to this task under instruction and guidance. Because a lot of the persons we are required to place, we have to end up sending them into private sector for job experience, when a part of their job experience can be this type of community effort and outreach that ultimately benefits this arm of the government in a meaningful and long-term positive way. So, Minister of Finance, over to you in terms of trying to coordinate at least what we do from the Ministry of Tourism, because I know we normally get some persons there, not a lot, and then you normally have some from Economic Growth and Job Creation, some youth program. Just figure out a way to coordinate everybody to select 20 persons or whatever is required. Whatever you get done in the process must be more than what we would have had if we had not added this element.
All right, member, the recommendation is noted. We would need to do an evaluation of what currently obtains and see how we would move towards potentially doing that.
Mrs. Jones, those two questions related to the life certificates. You had a system where when you brought the life certificate in, it automatically generated a receipt. But I know that you're now back to a manual, handwritten receipt. What's the challenge there?
All right, thank you, Chair. All right, yes. In the past, we did the automated receipts. We had an issue, an IT issue. The programmer was engaged and is now resolving same. And we should be reverting very soon to the system-generated receipts. So in the interim, you receive the manual and receipt as proof.
And then what is because there have been instances where people physically drop in your Dropbox, and then for whatever reason, whether it's moving from the Dropbox to wherever it is processed, life certificates end up missing. How do you ensure you reconcile those that are dropped in the Dropbox and they actually reach to the processing place?
All right. We have received complaints there, Chair. How many of those complaints we have validated? Not many, but I will try and share with you the process as is. So we listen. When we get these, we got some complaints December thereabout. What we have since done is no one person empties the box. So it's a process. You receive, you move. Sterile space, we have accounted for, let's say, 20 on day one. Recipient in the next step accounts for the 20 and 20 uploaded. So it's just a control listing mechanism. Yes, it gets a little tedious because appreciating the volume of life certificates that we receive sometimes, but it's the control mechanism that we have been using there to support. And as indicated, we will be returning to the automated receipts to remove that need. Member Holness? Okay.
So go ahead yes, if you have the answers.
5 million per month for the pensioners living overseas.
Percentage is that of the total?
0.2%.
0.2% of your total pension. So it's relatively small.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Members, are there any other questions for the Accountant General? Yes, Member Guy.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm looking at 3.2.77. Investment in a machine and software to auto-seal pressure machine at a cost of 1.2 for printing pensioners' payslip and life certificates, plus a 3.8 million for the accompanying software. Over 5 years later, in 2020, the machine has still not been commissioned into use. And the Accountant General's Department continued outsourcing arrangement and paid approximately $37.4 million for the 4-year period to a third party for the printing. Can you give us why this was acquired and why was it not used? And I also see, if I'm not mistaken, it says that there was an impending reimbursement of US $41,000. Could you explain it, because it seems a little nebulous?
Let me try and chronicle that. A decision was taken in 2015 to purchase pressure auto-seal pressure machines. The intent at that time was to have the life certificates printed in-house and not rely on a third party. Thereafter, there was water damage to this machine. In 2018, to be exact. The delay as to the AGD taking over the printing responsibility, I am advised that recruitment and other resource identification was contemplated but was unsuccessful. And thereafter, the water damage came. We are to be reimbursed by the insurance company for this machine. The sum that we have signed on the discharge form is for the machine and other equipment that were damaged in the flood. Have I answered you fully, Member?
Yes, you have answered somewhat. But the concern I have is that, yes, a decision was taken, the machine was bought but never utilized, but yet you ended up paying, still continue to pay for that 4-year period, $37 million to sources outside. And further, we see here in the AUGD's report that there seem not have been any formal tender arrangements to get this particular contract for the sources outside. It creates a concern for members on this particular committee as to first of all, the basis for which you had, or your department had intended to save funds, because that was the intention, I assume. And secondly, that you expended amounts, but at the end of the day, and after 4 years, nothing of your original intention had been accomplished, but you ended up spending $37 million during this period.
Okay. We regularized that arrangement, member. We went competitively, a procurement process, and the supplier was re-engaged competitively. We now have a contract in place. The thought process in 2015 to print the life certificates in ongoingly reassessing your control environment and being so guided by the financial instructions, one key element is segregation of duties. So at the AGD, we received the life certificates to validate living status. We have another unit that processes the payments. It therefore means we would have to rely further on the segregation of duties. What we want to do is ensure or attempt in the best possible way that there's no collusion in what we do. And as public officials, the transparency. So cost benefits, once again, plays a role. And the environment in which we operate is very dynamic. So in 2015, the conditions might have been ideal, but in 2020, looking at our resource outlay, wanting that robust segregation, it was thought the best way at this time is to continue with an external party, go competitively to ensure that we're having value for money, and that we did. The process, lessons learned, members spoke about it. Any decision being made, the due diligence must be done. Get our stakeholders involved, MOFPS, any other entity that contributes to the process, and we come up with a cost benefit that can justify what we're doing and open to the whole transparency concept that we want. So yes, we continue with the supplier, but we have competitively engaged, and you may ask, member, is this arrangement going to continue into perpetuity? Once again, the civil registration mechanism will allow us to do away, in the main, with this kind of arrangement. So we continue until we can proper order our steps to ensure that all our mandate is being fulfilled at the optimum level. Member
Sibley's.
And this is my last question, Mrs. Jones. But, and I'm satisfied with the answer you gave earlier. But what I want to know, what are the steps that you're going to take? I know you just said about the opportunity, in doing things differently, but one of the things that I am reading quickly in the Auditor General's report is that the use of the software, it was not utilized, it never went into service. And I know you said earlier that you guys are procuring a new system. You know, in doing that, how are you ensuring that we don't get a system again and it becomes a white elephant for a period of time in terms of getting the users, those persons who are going to use a system, being a part of the whole process, and so when the system is in place, it is an easy transition. And that is what, in other words, I would recommend to you that the users participate in the process from now.
Fair enough. And we are saying the same thing, member. I had mentioned earlier the project team. The project team will consist of internal members also. The governance arrangement there is that we'll have some sort of steering committee to guide value for money, and as we had indicated, successful implementation. My earlier comment said the majority, and maybe Auditor General will agree with me here, the majority of the findings ought to be resolved when we have this automated pension system. What it will do, it will allow for certain rules to be embedded in the system, removing the need for the manual intervention, reductions in all the risks there, documentation benefits, and the list goes on. So we have a lot to we have a lot to gain with this system. So we are committed to a successful implementation.
Chair, this is not a question. I am, as a politician, I'm living up to my promise. This is just a recommendation, yes, or to underscore the recommendation that I made earlier, that the users participate, and that the organization, I know, sometime will be trying to balance the users having to do the current work plus to participate in this big project. But I am recommending that the users be put within this project, and you recruit temporary persons to continue with the archaic system, so that when the new system is ready, the users would be very, very familiar with the system because they were the one that participated and led in most of the activities as it relates to system implementation. So it's just a recommendation.
Point is taken, member. Allow me to clarify, please. When I say involvement of the users, we have an arrangement where we can second the officers to the project, because there is no way we could do the routine activities and project implementation. So yes, secondment of users to assist there.
All right, members, let me thank you, Mrs. Jones, and the team from the Accountant General's Department and the Ministry of Finance, and you're free to leave us. Member Sibley's had raised issue at the beginning of the meeting, and he requested that we look at a matter in camera. So I'm going to just ask the members, we're going to break for about 10 minutes. We're going to repair to the conference room, and I'll just ask the FLA team to just await our return. All right, so if we could just go to the conference room now.
Now, when your physical health, so clear emotional health.
No, when we need to talk and listen to each other.
Now, when supporting each other means survival.
Now, in a time of COVID-19.
Speak up, speak now.
Beat COVID-19.
Call 888-NEW LIFE, 639-5433.
Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect pan the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep
eat.
we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica.
Nah, click on your link for my liquor brother pre that slap bro, we no need that. And the next thing them type a song they are listening online, what kind of thing that some big man pose up on them profile and a put chat to a small child. Watch yourself on social media when you a post back sis, no do nothing too wild. What if your little brother said a post ya? What if your bro dead in another crime video ya? What if your little sister fi take a one pic and it a put up everywhere like it's a poster? Before me share the post, the pic, I ask myself what if I nah comment, I nah go click me. Before me ask what if I nah comment, I nah go click me. Before me ask what if so before you share the post, the link, just ask yourself what if yeah. When you're there online, make it a new day at the rhyme. Keep up with the time. Broadcasting commissioner remind you.
Hello. Today we're going to be making breakfast and preparing a lunchbox for school. Let's start with some sugar and salt. And wash it down with a nice big glass of more sugar. And now for the lunchbox. Let's put in saturated fat, more salt, and sugar. Foods high in salt, fats, and sugar increase the risk of hypertension, obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Now more than ever, we have the right to know what's in our food. Give us warning labels on the front of our food packages.
Jamaica Eye can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicaeye.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
Starting January 1, 2019, scandal bags and other plastic bags measuring 24 inches by 24 inches and smaller are banned in Jamaica. Big garbage bags measuring over 24 inches by 24 inches are still allowed. See, when it comes to your garbage, make sure you still bag it and bin it. And when you go shopping, take a reusable bag with you.
Now dirty up Jamaica.
Brought to you by the Tourism Enhancement Fund and Wisynco.
Jamaica, land of wood and water. That's Jamaica, once covered with lush forests and rivers with clean, clear water. But only a small fraction of our natural forest is still standing, and our water is becoming more and more polluted. But all is not lost. Clean, clear water flows underground deep in Jamaica's heartland, the cockpit country, rising as springs which flow into rivers, giving many people in the west of Jamaica their water. All these communities get their water from Cockpit Country. And all that water under Cockpit Country is covered and protected by Jamaica's largest remaining natural forest. Living in this fantastic forest are so many plants and animals. Many of them are found nowhere else in the world. Living around the forest are people. Cockpit Country gives farming communities clean water and fertile soil to grow a lot of the food Jamaica eats. Cockpit Country is where the Maroons fought the British and won. It's a symbol of resistance and triumph. Cockpit Country is water. Cockpit Country is people. Cockpit Country is Jamaica's heartland. We must protect it.
A state agency charged with unearthing and showcasing talent. A powerful telecoms partner, a giant in the financial sector. All come together as we go in search of Jamaica's next gospel star. 4 exciting weeks of soul-stirring and awe-inspiring gospel music, and the intense battle to see who will be the last one left standing. It's all up to you and your weekly votes to choose the Jamaica Gospel Star 2021. Join us and be blessed.
When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. That is higher than I. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the streets to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it.
No dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect pan the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep
eat.
the island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica.
The new coronavirus, too small to see, spread quickly from person to person, town to town, and country to country, to all corners of the world. Any one of us can catch it, spread it, and get sick. When a person infected with coronavirus breathes, talks, coughs or sneezes, tiny droplets with millions of harmful viruses spread into the air and land on everything nearby. Without realizing, the viruses enter our body. We breathe them in. They land in our mouth, nose, and eyes. And we pick them up on our hands, then touch our eyes, nose, or mouth. In these ways, the viruses enter our body and infect us. Most people don't get very sick with coronavirus. We can have this virus and not know it, and easily pass it to others, who pass it to more people. In a few weeks, a whole neighborhood can get infected. Most people who get sick get better on their own, but some, especially the elderly, and people who already have illnesses, can get very sick and even die. Coronavirus spreads when people are close together. To protect ourselves and each other, we need to stay away from crowded and enclosed places and keep our distance. Wear a mask to protect others and ourselves. Keep our hands away from our face. Cover our cough or sneeze using our bent elbow. Wash our hands often and well with soap and water. And clean surfaces that are touched often with disinfectant to make them safe. All these actions can help stop the spread of coronavirus and keep ourselves, our family, and our communities safe. You can follow these actions and stay safe too.
Three factors can help you make safe choices when you're in an area of widespread COVID-19 transmission. Consider the location, the proximity to others, and the amount of time you spend there. Where does your activity take place? Open-air spaces are always safer than enclosed spaces, particularly if they're small or without fresh air. Proximity to other people is also important. It's safest when there are fewer people around and you can keep more than 1 meter apart. How long does your activity last? The shorter, the better. Think about each of these factors and avoid situations where the risk dial is high. Small or poorly ventilated places and crowds of people for long periods of time. Stay safe. Lower the risk to yourself and others.
Bureau of Gender Affairs mainline at 876-754-85778 or call the helplines. Females call 876-553-0372. Males call 876-553-0387. And remember, there's absolutely no excuse for abuse.
Jamaica, we all have a big problem. So far, 100 persons has lost their life because of what? Motor vehicle accident. Speed kills. Life is more precious than gold. Speeding, leave that for me on the track. My name is Johan Blake, the Beast. Remember, help me save lives, Jamaica, please.
The following is brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with kind support of NIA and USAID.
Criminal minds think they are cunning. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency have them running. Your friend a shout, come here. Take time running. Are we ready for the ops? Drive up on your block. Step out now me black. Cyber take away your laptop. Pull up every lock. No evidence to drop. We put it in a cuffs and now we have the under. From your system you better look out fit. When you move corrupt better look out fit. They say you get wet. Look out fit. Look out fit. Look out fit. From your system you better
look out for it. When you move corrupt, better look out for it. Feel say you get wet, look out for it. Look out for it. Look out for it.
The proceeding was brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, with the kind support of NIA and USAID.
MOCA! MOCA!
Expansive tropical forests, majestic rivers and mangroves, lush seagrass beds, colorful coral reefs, and great people. Welcome to the Caribbean. Our small Caribbean islands boast wonderful ecosystems. And they're not only beautiful, they also provide us with needed resources for farming, fisheries, forestry, and tourism, from the ridge to the reef. But wait, pollution from households, manufacturing, and farming, as well as poaching and overfishing, are undermining the health of our ecosystems and our livelihoods with it. Yet it doesn't end there. The fact that we change the climate makes the situation worse. The ocean will continue to warm and acidify, and the sea level is on the rise. This will not only threaten coral reefs, it might also intensify hurricanes. And resulting storm surges will be further intensified because of higher sea levels. It will force the destruction of mangroves and seagrass beds that are a good defense against beach erosion, especially when coral reefs are being destroyed. In addition, it is very likely that heat waves will occur more often and last longer, while extreme rainfall will become even more intense and frequent. Floods, droughts, and landslides will follow, leading to soil erosion and sedimentation that undermine our water storage capacity and compromise the availability of our fresh water. In a nutshell, existing problems will become worse, and they all have to do with water. All economic sectors, including agriculture, mining, energy, manufacturing, and tourism, depend on the availability of adequate water resources. Importantly, clean water is the very foundation for our health and the biodiversity of our environment. Clearly, the exposure to hazardous chemicals and sewage threatens human health. The same is true to biodiversity. For example, marine environments, including coral reefs, are vulnerable to smothering with eroded soils, chemical pollution coming from the hillside down to the sea. Also, the removal of trees in the forest leads to the transport of sediment by water to the coral reefs, which smothers them. This is why we need to work together, from the ridge to the reef. So, paradise lost? No. There are things we can do. First, let's work together. Why? Because everything is connected. We can plant trees within watersheds to reduce soil erosion and increase rainwater absorption. We can also reduce the use of chemicals in households, agriculture, commercial and industrial operations, and untreated sewage. That will help to reduce the pollution of our Caribbean waters. For marine life, for tourism, and for farming, let's improve our water and wastewater management. Most importantly, we have to work together to preserve our wonderful environments, our livelihoods, and our health. Government, the private sector, and civil society all have a role to play. Climate is changing. Working together from the ridge to the reef is the way to go. Now let's solve current problems to prepare for future challenges. That way, our kids too can say, the Caribbean, what a great place.
to remind somebody that there is purpose in their life because of the grace of Jesus Christ. Yes. And we sing. Right up.
You came and you rescued me from every situation.
And now
I am free.
because of your grace.
Your grace and mercies, Lord, it makes all the difference.
Every difference.
You are holy.
Yes, Jesus.
All the things that I've been through,
Everything.
didn't know I would make it through your grace.
Because of your grace.
Because of your grace.
And all
the sleepless nights and the tears from my eyes, the struggles and the obstacles I face all the time.
your grace, Jesus.
Because of your grace.
And we sing. Yes, Lord. We sing home. Right up. All the things.
All the things that I've been through,
Everything.
didn't know I
Good afternoon again, members and the team from the Firearm Licensing Authority and the Ministry of National Security. We had an in-camera session just now, and what we have agreed is that the document which it's a redacted document which details the separation agreements for individuals at the FLA would not be subject of discussion here or table for public consumption. That's what the committee has agreed. We will have a discussion related to the matters that arise, but the specific document would not be. Mr. Williams, Permanent Secretary, could I ask you to introduce yourself and the team from the FLA that is here?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Of course, I'm Courtney Williams, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of National Security. To my immediate left, Mr. Shane Dallin, the CEO of the FLA. And behind me, Mr. Anderson, Director of Finance and Administration at the FLA, and Ms. Samantha Allen, who is the Director of the Protective Service and Small Arms Branch in the Ministry of National Security. She's behind me.
Thank you. Madam Auditor General, you want to just take us through the findings of your report?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. All right, so there are just two issues. This matter in relation to the inadequate control over fixed assets and inventories. And as you'll see in the prompt, where reference was made to our inability to determine the accuracy and completeness of the inventories balance. And of course, these findings are emanating from our review of the financial statements. The amount mentioned there, the 2.5 million, Mr. Chairman, is not one that is considered material relevant to the total inventory balance. However, it is flagged because the items that we're referring to are actually the materials that are used to make the firearm, the licenses, so the license for the firearm holder. So we believe that in qualitatively it is material. The next item is as you see it flagged there as excess termination termination payments, which we set out there. Actually, it's in breach. The method used is in breach of that stipulated by the Ministry of Finance.
Mr. Dallin, you want to, or the PS, or Mr. Dallin, either of you does to respond. Mr. Dallin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chairman, in relation to the matter of the inventory as it relates to the ID cards, what happened is that the Information Technology Unit at the FLA was in charge of keeping the items, issuing the license cards. In 2018, we decided to put the system on electronically updated system, moving it from manual to electronic data, Mr. Chairman. Also, for greater accountability, we moved the responsibility from the Information Technology Unit to the Procurement and Office Management Unit to be in charge of the entire inventory, and the application unit would be responsible for the issuance of the ID cards. Therefore, the application unit would apply to the procurement unit and office management service for the relevant cards when it is required for issuance to applicants. And all of this was now computerized, Mr. Chairman, and this was done from 2018. The audit that was done in 2020, 2 years later. So at that time, the system was upgraded and greater accountability existed. However, in 2020, we conducted a disposal process at the office, and the book in question that would have had the data, it seemed would have been accidentally thrown out during the disposal process. The book was not in use anymore at the time, Mr. Chairman, and was placed in storage. And I say that it was accidentally, may have been accidentally, because we are not able to locate it. However, Mr. Chairman, while the physical book cannot be located, the inventory was used as we are able to match all the holders that were issued license card between that period to match against the total of what could have been issued. So we can look at the system and identify all the license holders who were issued new license card during that period and could tally back to what we have here. But the book itself that would account for the receiving and transferring and the signing of each card, that is what is missing, which would have provided clear explanation to the Auditor General's team, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to deal with finding number 2?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in relation to item number 2, we decided based on certain circumstances to separate with employees of the Firearm Licensing Authority because of what was taking place at a particular time in the life of the entity. We decided to do so in what we view as an amicable way, based on what we were faced with at the time. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, we sought legal advice on the way forward, and we were guided by the fixed-term contract policy, particular section 9.1 of the fixed-term contract policy of the Ministry of Finance, which stated that contracts may be amended by mutual agreement to facilitate changes in the terms and conditions of employment prior to the expiration date. And so based on that, Mr. Chairman, we had mutual agreements with the staff members, and we separated amicable on the terms set out in that agreement. And the payments that were made under that agreement, the funds stated in that agreement were the exact amount paid out by the FLA. Mr. Chairman, the Auditor General view is that she does not believe that Section 9.1 of the fixed-term contract policy was intended for that purpose. I maintain strong objection to that, Mr. Chairman, because I believe that this section is clear enough to facilitate a change in the terms and conditions of the employment contract, because it is indeed a mutual agreement between the parties, and it is indeed seeking to amend the original contract. And the separation agreements do make mention of the original contract which existed. The Auditor General's position, I believe, is up for interpretation, Mr. Chairman, as to whether the section was intended for that purpose, because nothing on the face of the document suggests that it bars what we did. The Auditor General makes mention of Section 10.3, but I humbly submit, Chairman, that Section 9.1 does not say it is subject to 10.3. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I ask the question that 10.3 makes reference to permission being sought from the Ministry of Finance where there's a material deviation. Mr. Chairman, it is therefore open for debate as to what is a material deviation.
Can I just ask a question? Yes. The legal advice you saw, was it from the Attorney General's Department?
No, Mr. Chairman. Private counsel.
It was private counsel?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any reason why you went that route versus the AG's department?
Mr. Chairman, we have always sought private counsel because as an entity, we are not a part of the Crown. So we are entitled to our own legal counsel. In fact, when we engage the AG, we have to pay privately. We have to pay as private, almost as a private person.
Okay.
Yes, it's standard.
You went through a detailed discourse as to your mode of operation and why. that deviation, was the Ministry of Finance consulted? Were they included in that process in terms of being a part of the agreement for the adjustments? And were they notified of what the findings were coming out of the legal counsel?
No, member.
Or is Ministry of National Security?
The parent ministry.
Oh, yes, yes, member. The parent ministry was aware from the start to the end of what we were doing.
Chairman. Hold 1 second, member guy. Madam AG.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I really don't have much to say. The member Holness asked an appropriate question regarding whether or not the Ministry of Finance was consulted, because in this matter, it is the Ministry of Finance that has the authority and not the parent ministry. But suffice to say that Mr. Darling has documented his views on this matter. I have documented mine. I maintain that this represents an overpayment. I cannot confirm, but it may be that the practice may be continuing based on Mr. Darling's interpretation. I will not at this point seek to have any discussion regarding the legal application of the provisions of the contract that is within the Ministry of Finance. My responsibility is to refer the matter to the Ministry of Finance with a recommendation to recovering the sums, because I treat it as an overpayment, and so the officer who is responsible for it ought to make good that overpayment, because it's treated as a loss, because it was made outside of the provisions. Now the ministry may conclude in keeping with Mr. Darling, but my responsibility as Auditor General is to highlight these matters when there are breaches and to make recommendation for recovery of the government's funds, which I will take that path, Mr. Chairman.
1 second, Mr. Darling. Member Guy.
The question I was asking, Chair, was whether the parent minister, having been in the loop from day one, had made representation to the Ministry of Finance as it relates to the final separation. Because in any case, this is where the Auditor General is going to take the recommendation, and the Ministry of Finance will either agree with your position, but I think it is something that needs to be settled, because we may have other entities that may do the same thing, and I think the only way it is settled is if the government's legal advisor gives an opinion on it to say what is the true picture. And I think in light of that, then the recommendation to the Ministry of Finance should also seek to get a legal determination on it.
Member Holness, and then Member Williams.
Yeah, I really won't belabor the point, because as you realize, we would have had an in-camera discussion, and I don't want us to go on and on until we sort of get off the rails. Recommendation, I think, coming out of both the AG's recommendation and the discussions that we have had and your own response, is to still have through the FLA the parent ministry, and let me make sure I say it properly. I heard myself saying Ministry of National Security. I don't know how come something else was in my mind. Must be Courtney Williams who caused it. Making a written submission, just asking for not just clarity, but also, even though it is post the event, some guidance, written guidance as to how you would proceed going forward if you have any such similar situation, with reference to its previous Circular 15 dated May 8, 2012, that they do some form of update that allows for the peculiar situations that you would find yourself in, so that it provides the necessary cover that may be required in situations of this type going forward with separation. I think we now, Member Williams, you would allow me to close on that? Asking if you'd allow me to close on that. I think, yeah, I don't think it makes sense we belabor it. It really means that to just clean this arrangement up, just make sure you write and request the necessary documentation to have it in place, because AG is correct. She has to make the statements based on what she understands to be in place. You with counsel can provide justification for something that may have been hoped for but not so documented, so you operated in keeping with the documentary evidence, in keeping with the law. But just to make sure that we're not back at this place, we really need to refer it to the Ministry of Finance. So ask the Ministry of National Security in whatever way you can to write to the Ministry of Finance, and at some point let us know what the adjustments to Circular 15 dated May 8, 2012 is, so that we are comfortable our actions are appropriate going forward in the future. Thank you.
Member Cousins.
Thank you, Chairman. CEO, there clearly appears to be a disparity in terms of your interpretation of 9-1 and the AG's interpretation, notwithstanding the fact that you have counsel that you engage. I'd urge you to also seek some advice from the Attorney General's chambers on the matter. It wouldn't hurt. So I'm asking you to consider that. It's a very important issue. It's a very critical issue. And we can't just leave it up to what you believe is right or what the Attorney General, the Auditor General believes is correct. We need the opinion from the department that advises us on legal matters, and that is the Attorney General's chambers. So try and see if you can get some support from them in respect of this issue, because what will happen is that if you are incorrect, you're going to continue to perpetuate something that is incorrect, and we're going to find ourselves back here dealing with this very issue again very soon. So I'd say go to the Attorney General's chambers, engage them, and get some advice from them. Thank you.
Member Holness.
Just adding to this point, because it's the same point of closure. Just adding to this point, because it's the same point of closure, is literally closing the loop on future possibility of divergence in views. So parent ministry, Ministry of National Security, right to Ministry of Finance. I am sure Ministry of Finance will possibly also get advice from the Attorney General, which they are allowed to be able to do without having to pay any additional fees, because they then fall within the ambit of the government, and close the loop between FLA, your parent Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance, your parent ministry, Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Finance, going right back now to Madam Auditor General. So we are all a little bit better advised as to how we would proceed. And if they adjust the documentation from Ministry of Finance, it literally gives everybody a clear appreciation and cover for our actions going forward. I think that is, in summary, it.
All right, Mr. Darling, I think the committee, you want to respond, or PS?
No, just a final response to that. We are fully on board with that recommendation, because as Mr. Darling said earlier, the Attorney General Chambers not obliged to respond to the FLA since they are not funded from the consolidated fund. But insofar as once we reach out formally to the Ministry of Finance, in terms of the Ministry of Finance, who are really the owners of that circular, the Ministry of Finance can then, if it sees it necessary, actually bring the Attorney General Chambers on board in terms of an opinion on this matter. So we will proceed like that.
All right, members, thank you. Anything else on this matter? If not, I'll close it. In relation to our next meeting, members, we'll meet next week. There is one matter, JSIF. Madam Auditor General, no, one matter outstanding. Use the mic.
I will consult with Mrs. Douglas Beckford regarding JSIF and the outstanding issues. We have not received an updated response from JSIF. So usually when we don't receive updated response, we try to reach out to them. And what I didn't remember, when we were speaking earlier, is that I did inform Mrs. Douglas Beckford from the very outset that there would have been some delays because of the timing of the notification of these entities and doing the work to get the feedback.
So the question is unlikely that you'll get in time the response for you to prepare
provide
from
it to you within a time that would allow you to do the review. But Mr. Chairman, as I said, we are now collecting, trying to verify as far as possible what actions they have taken since, and if it is that we can satisfy ourselves that the necessary response has been followed through, then I will advise Mrs. Douglas Beckford as to whether I believe they need to come before the committee.
All right, so today is Tuesday, you'll let us know by the latest, what, Thursday?
Thursday.
All right, so members, Mrs. Douglas Beckford will provide an update if we can get the documents in time. If we can't, then we will await till after the summer recess to continue our meeting. All right, can I have a motion for the adjournment? Moved by Member Holness, seconded by Member Chin. Thank you, members.